Welcome back to another episode with ByrdAdatto. Today, we really want to start kind of shifting a little bit compared to our other episodes. And so we have a special guest today who you may have seen before in other episodes, but we definitely want him to talk about something different than some of our previous heavy legal discussions. Michael, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, so our law partner, Jeff Segal, who has many other things that could go after being our law partner. He is an attorney, he is a neurosurgeon, an entrepreneur, and has an interesting perspective that is different than what you'll normally see when we're talking about compliance from a legal perspective. He of course has that as well, but it's really been impactful for him to bring his medical knowledge into making sense of what's happening as much as that's possible. And so we really are grateful that you're here today, Jeff.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I am going to speak, I think, from a medical perspective. I wear a lot of hats. I am an attorney. I'm a businessman. I run an organization called Medical Justice, also partner with a ByrdAdatto law firm. And in between, I was also CEO of a small biotechnology company in Research Triangle Park. So in one sense, I have a lot of background and experience. On the other hand, it's pretty clear I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I'm confused. But I bring a somewhat optimistic long-term perspective to this. Let me explain what I mean. This is not an existential threat to our civilization. It certainly seems like it for a short period of time, but we will get beyond this. I certainly remember the dot-com crash. I remember the 2008 financial crash. And at the time, it seemed like we would never get better. We did get better. This seems deeper and broader. I guarantee you we will get better. And there's a little bit of good news long term, and I'm also going to give you some short term good news. Let me start with long term. A few people have been talking about the potential for a pandemic for 15, 20, 30 years. But we only seem to have two modes in this country. They're complacency or crisis. We never seem to quite hit the mark. So nobody's really prepared for a pandemic. And in spite of the first SARS virus, in spite of Ebola, in spite of MERS, in spite of H1N1, we really didn't have a game plan either globally or from an American perspective to think this through. Consequently, we're now caught with our pants down, and this is a very expensive misadventure. And there will be some loss of life. This will also be an expensive calamity. But it's not a civilization ender, and I think more importantly, it points to the importance of proper planning. I have little doubt that going forward, we will put together a plan on how to manage this. And right now, the COVID-19 is amazingly contagious, and it is more lethal than the worst influenza that's been around, but it is nowhere near the most lethal virus that exists. So people are suggesting now that the mortality rate for this is maybe 0.6% to 1.2%, maybe a little bit below, maybe a little bit above. But if you think about avian flu, for example, that has a mortality rate of 60%. That's 2 orders of magnitude higher. Can you imagine that going around with this level of contagiousness? Now, it is true that avian flu is not particularly contagious. So we got lucky, we dodged a bullet before. And I think in a sense, we're going to get lucky this time. But what we hope to come out of this is with a game plan, a roadmap on how to manage this going forward. Now let's talk about near term. The financial crunch will be solved after the medical crunch. Let me repeat that. The financial crunch is going to be solved after the medical crunch. And so what's the news on the medical crunch? Well, it doesn't look great for the moment, but I am more optimistic. I think never in the history of humanity have so many people been working on such a thorny problem at the same time. Just think about it. This virus was identified in Wuhan, China, sometime toward the end of 2019. And once it was identified and clinically described, it was genomically sequenced. That was sent out to the world. There have been therapeutics that have been proposed, tested, and tried. There have been monoclonal antibodies that have been proposed, tested, and tried, and there are vaccine trials along the way. We're now looking at repurposing existing medications to be used in the in the fight against COVID-19. One in particular that I've been following are the ancient malaria medications, chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. No matter where you stand on the spectrum, these are items that are being tested. As I'm speaking here today, there are 54 clinical trials that have been registered in clinicaltrials.gov. Now, some of them are already rolling, some are enlisting patients, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. In addition, I've been speaking to clinicians all across the country, indeed all across the world, and they are zigging and zagging to try and take what they've learned, make their treatments better, and tell everyone. So, for example, one of the early treatments was to get a patient when they failed, when their ventilation failed, respiration failed, they would be put on artificial ventilation. And the traditional treatment for respiratory distress syndrome is high levels of PEEP. I won't bore you to tears with what PEEP is, but just recognize that that's an established treatment. So this looks like respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. And so people were treating it the same way. And they found that perhaps too much PEEP is making the problem worse. Maybe there are better ways to do it. This information is identified, disseminated, tried again. So this has been an amazingly iterative process. I'm amazingly proud of our brothers and sisters taking care of patients out in the field. You do this guy proud. I'm loving every one of you, and we've got your backs any way we can. So what's the summary? The summary is we will survive this. We'll survive it medically. We will survive it economically, and we will turn a corner soon. I think this could have been a lot worse. While we got caught with our pants down, in this case, it's probably not a good time to be caught with your pants down. I think the machinery of the country has picked up very rapidly, and I've seen innovation to a capacity that I've never seen in my lifetime. So cautiously optimistic here.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah, and I was going to say that you and I have had a lot of side conversations. You've expressed some of this stuff before with us as a whole firm. We're very appreciative of your insight. Like I said, I can read articles and try to understand it, but hearing it from you has been a great relief, as best as we can find relief. As I said earlier and somewhere else, the only thing we can truly control is our attitude right now. And hearing, positive news as best we can find it right now, and as little as wherever it falls, let's just find it. So I always appreciate your insight in these type of scientific matters.
Thanks, and I do think, and I'm being quite sincere. I think if we can take a long-term perspective, once we get beyond this, there will definitely be commissions and finger pointing. You can bet on that. Anytime there's a crisis or a calamity, the one thing you can bank on is that there will be a lot of blame, a lot of finger pointing. But we'll come through this. The field of medicine has been promising. It continues to be promising, and it will remain promising and quite lucrative for those practicing it.
Michael, anything else?
I don't love the optimism. Appreciate it.
Let's hope I'm right.
Yeah, we all hope you're right. That's about
well, I'm a neurosurgeon, so as they say, occasionally right, but never in doubt.
Well, with that, I want to sign off on a high note. Thank you again, Jeff, and we look forward to the next episode, and appreciate you tuning in again.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.